Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum
Walaikum
salam
Walaikum
salam wa
wa
assalam
rahmatullahi
wa
wa barakatuh.
rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wa mursaleen. Sayyidina wa habibina al-Mustafa Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsani ila yawmiddin. Alhamdulillah. So we'd like to welcome you all to this week's broadcast of the Awoken Grand Folk Show. I'm your host with the most from coast to coast, Imam Fahim, aka the Imam of the Boom Bap. Alhamdulillah, we're here today. We have our regular esteemed royal guest right below me. Definitely not in status just because the screen is split that way. Sister Fatima Burke, our orchestrator and our director from Canada. To my however, down the other part is our sister Fatima Muhammad from the British Virgin Islands. Our regular panelists. Also to my far side, I don't know if it's left or right, but y'all know what I'm saying, though, right? We have the gracious, the impeccable, the stupendous Joanne Thomas of the International Florida joining us. Then we have our esteemed Dr. Sabir, right on time as always, just like zoomed in, like on the PowerPoint presentation, just zoomed in. Yeah? Alhamdulillah. So these are all of our regulars, and today we have a special esteemed guest with us. We have our brother and our elder, Brother Muhammad Abdul Warith, one who has a plethora of information and history and experience as an elder in Philadelphia, and he's going to be here to talk with us today about his experience and also the group that he has been active in with the youth, namely the Jawala Scouts. And so we expound on that a little bit. So for our listening audience, this is the Fireside Chat. He's going to rock out with us, inshallah, and we're just going to be attentive. And of course, if you have any questions or comments or anything, just post them, and inshallah, we'll go from there. Okay, Sheikh, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Okay, now you're a person that don't need no introduction, but just tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bio, and your experience and stuff like that.
Okay, mashallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I was born in Philadelphia, North Philadelphia, as in North Philadelphia at the Temple University Hospital in 1948. And from that point up until 1966, when I graduated from high school, I grew up without a father image. And I cultivated, some of the bad habits that, young people without guidance and tight family dynamics would experience. So after high school, I got drafted into the military. I got into enough trouble the way I was going into an institution. I was going to the war, and the war was Vietnam. So I got drafted, inducted into the United States Armed Forces in Vietnam in 1969, January. I stayed in Vietnam for 2+ years, got hurt, wounded pretty bad, and I came home after my brother was assassinated, killed in Philadelphia. And when I got back in Philadelphia, at that point, I began to look for solutions and answers to what was going on, in the city. I always had some sense of consciousness in regard to our neighborhood and the things that were happening, even though I had gotten misguided for a certain period of time. So after Vietnam, I had gotten really more interested in a new and different way of life. Which way of life I thought that would be better or whatever. However, during that time, during the 60s, which is very important to try and understand, is that the 60s was an era, where there was massive civil disobedience and, millions on parts of millions of Americans and African Americans alike, resisting racism and institutionalized persecution. So the 60s created a certain type of mentality, a certain type of attitude. So during that period of time, I ran into, in our neighborhoods, were the Black Liberation Army and also was with the Black Liberation and the Black Panthers. And so a little familiarity with them after Vietnam, okay, trying to clean up the drugs in the neighborhood, taking a complete turn. I got incarcerated. I went to prison in 1972. And I got sentenced to a 5 to 10 year sentence. And all this time, I still hadn't figured out who I was and what I wanted to do. But when I went to prison, I began to reflect on who I was, what I needed, and it all related back to a system of life. I already had a relationship with God, so to speak. I already understood that I had communication. I prayed, these things I was doing, but I didn't see the relationship between that and a way of life. However, when I was in prison and I ran into other members of the Black Panther Party that had got incarcerated, right, that were in there, they had reached the point by which they had all started taking Shahada. The whole Black liberation movement during the 60s, they were getting arrested, they were getting life sentences, they were getting, because they were a people of action. And this is something in the 60s that people today don't really realize. And I'll just give you a little background, if I can, real briefly. Okay, from 1965 to 1985. Okay, during that period of time, African Americans were waking up. But at the same time, the economic apartheid was taking place in terms of the gap between the rich and the poor. So even that earlier, that was the underlying conditions of what was happening in society. So with all of these things happening during that 20-year period of time, by 1985, there was a new approach. They had to quiet down the movement. With the killing of Malcolm X and this dismemberment of organizations that supported Malcolm X during the 60s, then with all of these, then the society began to kind of like more so change. So myself in 1979, we started an organization called the World Islamic Scouting Movement. We had done the research on scouting as a means and a method, okay, of infiltrating the peer group and adding value to it. We felt that through activity, skills, mentoring, that we could redirect, okay, the impact that the society was having on young people at that time. So basically, that's when I became interested in scouting as a method. So that lasted a couple of years. And I'll kind of like end right there because, and I can entertain some more questions or whatever, because at that point, I had not ran into the information regarding the Jawala Scouts, but it was a prerequisite to that, was what we had initiated. There's brothers from Washington, D.C., brothers from Virginia, Maryland, and some brothers from Philly. The Islamic Center in Philadelphia, under the leadership of Ali Ahmad, was also a part of that effort, inshallah.
Oh, wow. MashaAllah, Sheikh. I got a just quick question. Would you say that you mentioned that you grew up and your father wasn't present? Do you think that was part of the reason why you wanted to be connected with the youth? Like, okay, my father wasn't around, and I know other young boys won't have their fathers, so I want to try to change the narrative.
Yes, no doubt about it, Fahim, because I have a drive, in me in regard to that it's like a motor, and I just keep it going. So I believe strongly that was it, because I didn't have that father image. I didn't have it, and I had to search around. My role models were dope dealers. My role models were, hustlers, bank robbers. They were my role models. That's what I came up in. That's what I knew. So once, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided me to Islam and opened me up, yes, that became definitely a part of what I felt motivated me. The second part of that too was when I was in prison and I was with the Black Panther Party with members like Russell Schultz and dynamic brothers. I mean, these brothers were very, very dynamic. They instructed me. I had the shortest sentence of all of them. I had a 5 to 10. They all had 30 years, 25 years, whatever. And to the day, some of them are still incarcerated, and some of them are out. Alhamdulillah, by Allah's mercy. But they said, Muhammad, when you go out, he said, they told me, you got to focus on the youth. You got to focus on the young people. And I kept that in my mind all the time. I was a new Shahada. I really didn't know that much about Islam, and I had a lot to learn, but I never forget that. So between those two elements, yeah, I was motivated.
Now, given the rich history of Islam in Philadelphia, even with all of the different manifestations of it, like for instance, the Nation of Islam, did you ever come across any teachers of the nation at that time, or any under any influence of the Nation of Islam?
No, unfortunately, Fahim, I was raised in North Philly. Like I said, my area was around Temple University Hospital. Around that area, the expansion of major institutions into low-income areas by putting drugs in the neighborhood and then acquisition of those neighborhoods, a sort of regentrification. With that process happening, I was able to see drugs and the part that drugs actually played in it. So when drugs came in, I looked at who was bringing them. I looked at what was going on with it. And it just so happened, this is not a condemnation on the nation, right? But it just so happened, a lot of the cast that was wrapped up in that was from the nation. And it was organized. And for that reason, I developed a sort of like alienation from that organization. Now, I didn't like the idea, black thing, that kind of thing or whatever. So I never went up in that. No, I didn't. I came right into the Sunnah.
Alhamdulillah. All right, so you mentioned your encounter with the Jawala Scouts. We were talking briefly before we started, and you started in the early 80s. Can you give us some, and then you said historically the Jawala Scouts goes all the way back to ancient Egypt.
Yes, that is correct. The term and the concept Jawala Scout, which basically translate and basically manifest terminology into rovers. Some people break it down into adventurous, physical training, these level of interpretations of the term Jawala. However, it initiated with the Ikhwani Muslimin organization under the leadership of Hassan al-Banna in Egypt around 1927. And what they did, they started with the establishment of a young men's Muslim association. It was rooted in a mission of the rebirth of the Egyptian village. Of course, that during that time, the U.S., British, England, and all, they were all wrapped up in Egypt under certain nation state leaders to kind of give it a modern touch, and hold Islam back from rising to the top in terms of political sovereignty. So in that respect, the brothers during that period of time didn't like that. And another thing that ignited it was the fact of the missionaries, the Christian missionaries. They really, the youth and the organization itself weren't really pleased with not having an alternative to resolve an issue of the mission of the Christian missionaries. So the Organization of Society of Muslim Brothers in 1928, they established what was called an Egyptian Scout movement, okay? So in other words, they're utilizing the principles of youth activity, energy, right? Athletics, all these things to bring the youth back into the masjid and to revive Islam through the youth. So Jawala and the system itself, its principle has always been rooted in that. Always been rooted in that. And that has been one of the what you call theoretical frameworks or paradigms by which youth development has carried Islamically from Islamic history in the 20s through to when it came, the brothers from the US got it, all right, into the current day today. And I've stuck with it based on that premise that it was a paradigm that was passed on for future generations. Now, after the situation in Egypt, they were very dynamic, as a matter of fact. The youth, they revived it. A lot of things happened. And as you know, there's a lot of consequences, and that's very detailed. I want to go into that, but I will tell you where and how it connected with the U.S. And in the U.S., again, in the 60s, late 60s, 70s, the Dar al-Islam movement was a group, African Americans, Muslims, came into Islam, dynamic. Read the history of it. Look into that period of time, the way that organization came. Also, the Islamic Party. These were brothers out of D.C. again. The other brothers that were from that part of the country. L.A., out in Cali. The Muslims, were really getting a hold of Islam and taking it in the practical sense, because they came from an era of practicality. They came from an era of action. When black African American liberation people came together, they had organized and they had a plan because they were pressured by the environment. The environment dictated that people were getting hung. People were oppressed, open out in public. Racism was institutionalized. So it's a different mindset. And it's one thing I want to leave you with before I move on, is that never forget this concept, right? That no phenomena in nature, no matter how you look at what's happening right now in the streets, with these young boys killing each other or whatever it may be, can be fully understood or explained by itself. None. No phenomena by itself, isolated from its surrounding phenomena. So no matter what it is that phenomena is, you can't isolate it from its surrounding phenomena. You can't isolate the individual from the society. You cannot say that the society doesn't have responsibilities to the individual and the individual doesn't have responsibilities to the society. So again, this all ties into that time frame of the dynamic approach of the Dar al-Islam movement to Islam. So they inherited the concept Jawala. No direct connection between Egypt and Dar, no. But Dar itself was unique. Out of New York, brothers out of New York. They started it. It got to Philly. Cleveland got it. The whole country, and it was dynamic. They had airplanes. They had supermarkets. They had everything you could imagine. Muslims don't know that today. They don't know that dynamic. They think it was an old thing. It died out, but it got attacked. It got, it got infiltrated and it got hurt. You know, so again, this is a pattern of, but anyway, the DAR took it, and when the DAR took it, they were very visible in the community. They served the community, they fed the community, they marched in the streets, they protected the community, they had safe havens. None of that nonsense happened. And it was all known, Jawala Scouts, the Muslims. The Muslims were looked up as the heroes of the community, you know, during that period of time. And again, this is where I came in 1981, I think 81, 82. I was asked by Imam Asim Abdul Rashid at Master Mujahideen to look at the program. By that time, Sheikh Shuaib was asked by Imam Jamil, I think, to write that program. Or prior to Imam Jamil, 1981, 80? I'm not sure, but he was asked to write the program. He wrote the program. And the program then took its form in 1985. So as the program took its form in 1985, from 85 to 95 is when my experience, I grounded it out. I got it. Me and another brother, Rashad Bey, we got in it. We looked in it. There was already leaders involved. It was already around the country. It was working well. However, but by 1999, okay, it started to die out in different cities. The commitment of black men, back to that again. You know, the commitment of how black men, because it's volunteers. So it's orientated from the masjid. So that's basically how, you know, it began to die out across the country. But in Pennsylvania, the Philadelphia area, it was strong. New York, Imam Alameen, strong. New York was very strong with Jawala Scouts, you know, and we networked very well with New York, Philly, Cleveland, Imam Mutallaf, Cleveland, wonderful. You know what I mean? The way that worked. Unfortunately, as time went on, it did die down to a certain extent. So that's some history of that transition from Egypt into coming into the Dar, and then from the Dar into the current time. Now, one thing I may have left out that I want to explain, but I don't want to go into detail, was as the Dar was dismembered, and listen to the word I said, dismembered, okay, that the division was Imam Jamil Alameen had one part, and the other part went elsewhere. The part that Imam Jamil had, that he wanted to be sure that the Jawala style stayed as a part of the program. So that's where the connection between Imam Jamil, Sheikh Shuaib, Philly, me, Imam Asim, and us, we just kept grinding the program. So riyadas, which are annual sporting events of the Muslims, everyone knows Islamic riyadas, we would have the Jawala Scouts march, demonstrate, and do the things, you know what I mean, to encourage the youth there.
Alhamdulillah, that's very remarkable. Yeah, I think the Darul Islam movement doesn't get enough mention that it deserves because, you know, especially over here on the East Coast, it was those kind of brothers that, you know, that exhibited manhood. You know, like I remember being a Muslim in the mid-90s, there was those kind of brothers that would, you know, they would show up at your house. Like if you didn't come out for the salat, like, you know, where you at, brother? And, you know, the kind of brothers that would check you, you know, and they weren't afraid. And yes, yeah, they were like heroes. I mean, I call it some end of it, but some of those older warriors, you know, alhamdulillah, man, Allah has blessed this ummah with, mashallah. All right, so we're going to go on a break in a few minutes, but just if you could give us, for many people who might not be familiar with the Jawala Scouts, like a mission, the mission statement of the Jawala Scouts.
All right, Jawala Scouts development curriculum, and I'll give you the basic updated 2022-23, is to impart to Muslim male youth between the ages of 7 to 18 the virtues of taqwa, discipline, responsibility, courage, leadership, self-defense, and survival in both urban and rural environments. That's basically criteria. Each location of the Jawala Scouts, right? In the case of the Pennsylvania unit of Jawala Scouts, have basically for the adult volunteer leaders 2 aims. Adult volunteer leaders for Jawala Scouts must have a child abuse clearance and they must have a federal background check. That's one. They have to go through training in regard to youth and interacting with youth in order to be a Jawala Scout leader. There's 2 aims they have: is character development. They got to have good habits, encourage humility, respect for others, and develop their inner awareness. And number 2, they have to have some level of skill merit achievement, meaning that they have some understanding basically of archery, horsemanship, the sunnahs that, the Prophet ﷺ advises to, swimming, hunting. They have some background in these skills and are able to advance and rank the youth in terms of promotion. The methods of scouting in the mission is the commitment. Scout oaths. Every scout has to make that commitment, that pledge. It's a pledge, it's a commitment. Allah is my Lord. Islam is my life. Quran is my guide. Sunnah is my practice. Jihad is my spirit. Righteousness is my character. Paradise is my goal. For I enjoy what is right, I forbid what is wrong. I fight against oppression. And I will sacrifice to establish Islam. That's a scout oath. 7 years old, 18, 19 years old. They memorize it, they recite it, they share and commit to each other. Squads. They're divided into squads. There's 3 levels. Age 7 to 10 is Muhajirin. Ages 11 to 13 is Mujahideen. Age 14 and up is Sabiqun. There are 3 different age levels. They're divided into squads. Their practice is teamwork and leadership within those squads. Outdoor programs and adventure, exposure. That's our priority. Every 4th week, whatever skill we're working on, along with our Islamic studies, our Arabic, our Quran, we have to have a field trip. Advancement is done, motivation is done by advancement in terms of ranking. Scouts are ranked. Association with adults, right? Mentoring is also a part of the requirement of the methods of scouting. Personal growth is in attendance, and they get a performance evaluation. Leadership development is, again, responsibility delegation, meaning in a squad, you have a sergeant, you have a corporal, you have different ranks that they strive for. And it's based on, their performance. Uniform is the last requirement in our methods, and that is like group loyalty and identity. So they have a uniform. And overall, what you have, the creation of a community safety net. So we have something in place for the Muslims. So that's the methods in terms of the mission that we have. 3 areas of halal benefit for the Jawala Scouts in that mission. Does it maintain and enhance Islamic guidelines? Fundamental and simple. Does the activity encourage that? Swimming, are they covered? Are their chests covered? Are they recognizing, their deen? So the activity must be an activity that encourages Islamic guidelines. Number 2, what affects the activities of the nafs? Always taking care of looking at nourishing the heart and educating young guys. This is a male program, focusing on that. And then 3rd and last, what practical benefits and skills are incorporated in the activity? Okay, whether it's archery, hitting the target, practicing for hunting season, junior hunting license, whatever the scenario is, martial arts, the ability to defend yourself, no matter what it is, what practical life skills and benefits are in the activity. So that's the mission. That's the guts and bolts and nuts of Jawala Scouts, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, we're going to take a pause for the calls for our commercial break, and then we'll be right back after these messages. Black Imams Roundtable, 7 p.m. Tuesday, Eastern Standard Time. Come check out your boy, the Boom Bat. Hey, Mom, look, I made it.
Yeah, and get your autograph while you can.
We do appreciate the support. So before we continue, I want to know if any of our panelists, if you all have any questions for Sheikh Muhammad, or anything you want to ask him about.
Well, I noticed that all the issues were being addressed towards the youth, which is excellent, an excellent policy. When you say the youth, did you mean the male youth only, or were there also some programs set up for the female youth? Because they are truly missing out, when there's no father leadership in the home as well. Not in the same way as some of the boys, but that presence is definitely missed. I, for one, know that personally, that it was missed. I had other mentors, but I wanted to know all the programs that were set up that particularly, were geared towards the female youth.
Yes, there is, and it always has been. In regard to the Jawala Scouts, in 1995, in that new version, update of the manual, was included what was called Banatul Muslimin. And the Banatul Muslimin were sisters, specifically designed program, equivalent on the same level of mentoring and personal self-development for sisters. And that was incorporated in 1995. In Philly, there was already a scouting program for sisters at UMM, and also there was a scouting program called Alima Scouts, set up by one of the wives of a former Jawala Scout instructor. She took the initiative to develop a sisters program, Alima Scouts, which covered all ages of young girls in Philadelphia. So yeah, there were programs for sisters equally, but it was headed and organized by the sisters.
Okay.
Okay, any other panelists have any questions?
I have a question myself. You're talking Sunday through Saturday. So what particular days would this training take place for as these youths are concerned?
Good question. The manual indicates that it should be a minimum of 2 days a week. So that's at minimum. So normally we would organize on a weekend and 1 weekday. And again, like I said, the fourth week includes the whole weekend. However, today we're doing just the weekends. We're just doing the weekends, and we have weekend camping trips, hiking trips, treks, that cover a weekend. Holidays where there's holidays where people are off and the kids don't have school, or summertime. We have longer trips, and and that's basically the days. It's just those 2 days. So it's just Saturdays right now for our group. It's Saturdays. Chester, PA, they have a Jawala Scout unit, and their days are Friday evening. When we were at Master of the Law in the 2000s, we did Friday nights, and Friday nights were very effective. You know, we do Friday nights, and this way we would carry the whole weekend on every fourth week. So that's basically how the time went.
One more thing now. Give me a time slot, like when this starts on them days, like what time?
Okay, on Friday evening we'll start at 6 p.m. and be over at 10:30. Generally, we go anywhere from 3 to 4.5 hours. On Saturday, it's 9 in the morning until after 4. That's 1 o'clock, 1:15. And that would be on Saturdays. On Tuesdays, it would be the same thing, 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m.
Any other questions from my panelists? Or
Yeah, do you ever have any of the young men come back as adults, like 10, 20 years later? And
Yeah, good question. Yes, we do. Right now, currently, we have one that came back, and it's really a great feeling to see that. Yeah, they do come back. Yes, we had what would you call a alumni ceremony. It was like a banquet dinner, and we honored must have been about 25 the Jawala Scouts that had passed and moved on. The ages was probably at this point between 22 and 40. And they came back, we honored them and whatever. And they were very involved in life, and some were doctors, scientists. And so the program really works well in terms of getting these guys going to where they need to go. And then in a lot of cases, they come back. They always promise to come back. Now, I'll tell you that, but they do come back. Some do come back.
I'm done.
Sheikh Muhammad, now, would you say like nationwide, you know, the program is kind of geared and suited up where the Jawala Scouts get the kind of training, and then they are the new, those heroes, the Muslim heroes in the neighborhoods. In your experience, how often does that occur? Like, you know, how often do the skills and the training and everything that they receive, where they come back and they are able to, you know, have that kind of role in the communities?
Okay. What you find is it's a situation of, I mentioned it before, not to lose that point, right? That, you know, surroundings, society. You have the individual and you have the society. Okay. They're interreactive. They're one. You know, they're one. It's like one is dependent upon the other. So you set a young brother up. Let's say he's not even in the Scouts. Let's say you raised him at home, taught him the best of the best. Don't do this. This is the best way. Was rode with him 100%. But he gets to a point where the impact of society overwhelms that. And in the case of Muslim young men, the impact of society lies in the fact that it is controlled by shaitan. Social media, okay? Everything is in this type of society. You got two types. Islam, right? Or khuf. That's what you got. You don't have a middle thing. There's nothing that say this is day okay, or this living society is acceptable, but they do have pornography. There is gays. There is no society impacts individuals. So this is we get to the point of as an elder that when a job is not just finished with programs. Programs are like a raft in the ocean. They're in the ocean. We live in a world that's controlled by Shaitan. These people are dangerous. If I had the time to get into it, I would. But I'll just give you a couple of statistics. According to a study about 2003, the Federal Reserve Board, 2% of families control 54% of the nation's wealth. We all know this. And only 10% of the people own 86% of net financial assets. This is an economic principle that we all know. The majority of American families, 55%, have zero or negative net worth. So these young guys that are in high school, dropping out of high school, those jobs that we used to have, they're not there no more. If they don't have a college education and they're not in the financial market, it's done. Manufacturing is flipped. So the society, you understand, the principles of the society dictate what is the protection on the individual. So what you're saying is, okay, you teach them, you set them up, or they're in a program, all right? And you look, say, okay, what are the results at the end? And the results at the end is they still have to maneuver and adjust and gauge through society. You see, and society is Jahiliyyah. So it is our mission and our goal to establish a healthy society. We cannot leave it with just having the knowledge of Islam and not establish it as a society. And all this ties in to the youth. So this is where you find that your results have to be looked at realistically in terms of the nature of the society by which that you live. Because there's an obligation. There's an obligation from society to provide accurate information. They don't do that. It's a responsibility of society to provide respect. You know they don't do that. And it's a responsibility of society to provide protection. And we all know they don't do that. So if these things, you see a society where the indications of it are more on the dullness and the criminality of it, opposed to the good of it, then you know you're not in a good place. But we as Muslims, we've been given the guidance. We've been given Surah Asr, which, you know, Imam Shafi said that that's basically enough. We've been given Asr, which tells us clearly, Amanu Salihah. You know, faith followed by right. What is righteous deed? It's sincerity in following the example of the Prophet. But we have to take that to the extent that we realize that it's beyond the raft in the ocean. Okay, we have to establish Islam so that people have a fair chance from society, from society's end. Now, the individual has his end, his attitude, his self-perception, how he sees himself. He has an ability to adjust within that. But if society isn't feeding that accurately, it's not healthy, then you don't grow. Some of us, you know, you see guys get by. They make it. I told you, we got doctors, lawyers, we got people that made it, right? But overall, generally, you know, it doesn't work that way. So hopefully that answers your question a little bit, but not going too far. So,
no, alhamdulillah, I did good. Yeah, I had another question. Well, you know, Philadelphia, alhamdulillah, is a very rich, has a very rich Islamic heritage. And I'm sure throughout your decades of, you know, experience, you've seen so much, you've seen things turn over. And now sometimes, well, a lot of times when you turn on the news and you read about Philadelphia, you see that that rich heritage has been marred by violence, you know, and Philadelphia is really kind of almost known. You know, I've heard some rappers call it Philadelphia Pennsylvania, and a joking manner, a nice metaphor, but it gives a reflection of some of the reality on the ground there. So what do you see in your vision, in your training, like some of the things that have happened, with the Islamic heritage and being marred by all of this stuff? Because I mean, like I see like the Jawala Scouts as potentially, I mean, they can be the community police. They can be the community vanguard, the community security, if they get the right support, because they already got, phenomenal training by brothers like you and others, and it's a nationwide movement. Okay, do you see that as a viable solution or something in the future that we can do with these youth?
Well, again, Fahim, it boils down again to our fitra that was entrusted to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Our natural instincts and where we are and how we're able to manage them, okay? And it's the difference between like evil meaning good and good meaning evil in an individual, okay? If in fact it's influence that evil is good and good is evil, then he's going to be thrown off his fitra, his natural instinct, right? Okay, to possibly go astray, to possibly struggle. No young brothers, and I tell you, I got thousands, okay, that I can tell you that came through me that I've known that didn't have like a lump in the road where there's a couple guys that their fitra was, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed them, and they decided that divine revelation and following the prophet was the message, and they followed that, and they made out okay. But those challenges on the other end, you see, it's all based down on a fitra, and that depends on what is affecting us. You see what I'm saying? I could learn from you how to be a man. I could translate. I could even pass the rites of passage program with an A+. I'm a man. I got it covered. I passed that test. You know what I mean? I did this, I did that, whatever. And get snagged, okay, with a naked picture of a woman, with pornography, with any kind of criminality, temptation. You understand? Because, we have a fitra. We have something that if it's not aligned and disciplined to divine revelation, right, and to the prophet, then it can get thrown away, thrown aside. And the problem is we think that we control that, but we don't realize that it's in the society that subconsciously influences us. It desensitizes us. Next thing you know, we sit in front of the TV, and about 5 or 6 uncovered women that been in front of us, or whatever you can say comes on the TV, a crime. Someone goes in the store with a gun. Look at all the crime in the stores, on the TVs. And this is what we are experiencing outside. Again, Fahim, is relative to the society that we live in. And if we continue, right, to feel as though we can beat that, because it already told us, Shaitan, a'udhu billah. We're supposed to guard ourselves from him. When we see that he has control over the media, social media, he has control over minds, he has controls over the resources, Allah's entrusted him with that. He's tested with this. And he's going to, Allah's promised us and told us what is going to happen to him as a result of that. But the bottom line is that that's our reality. So in terms, it takes, I think, for us to take more steps beyond programs, right? And nobody knows more than me, because I've been on it, because I've seen the results. Some guys, yes, they make it. Yes, the expectation is there, but most of them, Fahim, they get caught in the road. Now, a lot of times, go to the foundation, they bounce back. Maybe 40, 41, 45. 45 years old, 40 years old, 41 years old, they bounce back. 38. But that 20s and all that, early 30s, So inshallah, I hope I answered your question. Sorry, man, if I went off.
Nah, that's what we got you here for. Yeah, so just to let you all know, Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Warith, he is the producer of many young warriors, and he produced a female one too. You know who his daughter is, right? His daughter is Sabria Mills of the Dope Muslim Women's Podcast.
Oh.
Yeah, y'all didn't know that?
No.
I ain't mean to put you on the spot, Sheikh, but I think that needs to be known. So when you see, when you listen to the show and you hear the drive that she has and the passion and the commitment and the love, there it is.
Yeah.
That's where she got it from.
Okay.
And you know, brother Muhammad, you know, I've had the blessing of meeting him in person a number of times, and he's a remarkable guy. You know, like I said, if I didn't know myself that time passes over us and we all get old, I would think that he never aged.
Yeah,
you know, because he's great. He's more than many of us. He's still doing the work at this age, alhamdulillah. And you know, and if you all ever get a chance to meet any of the Jawala Scouts, they're very remarkable young men. You know, when you looking for children who are well mannered, have respect, you know, have chivalry, you know, have courage, have valor, all of these things. Because you know, in the area, we've had a chance to where they, you know, the Jawala Scouts, they do demonstrations sometimes for us, and these are very remarkable young men. And it's like, you know, and I know Sheikh Muhammad agrees that, you know, restoring the man, you know, getting them young and restoring the man in our community is going to be vital. It's going to be key for us, you know, to be still in existence as a people, alhamdulillah. You know, so it's great work you're doing, Sheikh, and we really appreciate it. Now, I just want to ask you, can you tell the listening audience about like the recruitment process? Like, how do you go for, you know, recruiting Jawala Scouts?
Okay, Jawala Scouts is an open program, and it's an open program at the masjid where you bring your child, you have an interview, you know, with your child, and then he's accepted, and he's given a 30-day trial period to see how he fits, how he works into the system, because we try to keep a certain standard. You know, a joker's a joker, and if he's a joker, we can't handle him. You know what I mean? So we want a guy that's really serious, going to be a part of the team, and so he has that interview, and then if he passes, you know, then inshallah he's a member. There's no registration fee, and it's only dues. They have dues to pay. That's from their own pocket. It's $10 a month. They pay their dues, and that provides for the transportation and different things and trips and whatever that we're doing, inshallah. Could I mention to you 2 other projects that I was working on? We don't have time.
Man, go for it.
Okay, one is it's called the AMP, Al Ma'un program. It's a mentorship program. It's a program for support of village of fathers is what it's called. Strategy is emotional stability training workshop. What we do is we go into schools, elementary schools, public schools. Last year before last, we went into 4 different elementary schools, and we go into exposing the root of unsolved anger, the lack of focus, fears, improved academic performance, reduction in detentions and suspensions. This is the Muslims. You know, we go in as organized brothers and do that social behavior improvement with parents, teachers, classmates. This is what we did over the year before. The head of that was a brother Bahir Islam, Rahim Allah. He passed away. I'm quite sure. I don't know whether you knew him or whatever, from Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
May Allah have mercy on him, expand his grave, inshallah. And he brought me in, and so far it's been very effective.
Now, is there a website we can plug in or anything? How can people get that information?
I'll send it to you.
Okay, now we want to plug it in right now with our live audience, and then you know, me and you could talk offline anytime. You know, I mean, the world knows you already. We just introduced you a part of the world that might not know of you.
Yeah. Brother, could you also send me a message with all that information, how to contact for all the 3 programs, and I can put something up on our page?
Okay, we'll do. We
If you
do.
don't mind.
Okay, inshallah.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll
Yeah.
do that.
You said in another program you were talking about a couple programs.
Oh yeah, of course you've heard Mirage Academy. I'm on the board of directors of Mirage Academy, which is in Memphis, Tennessee. It's a Yara Mahmoud Scholarship Program. What it focuses is on Quran leadership. Basically, it's organized exclusively for charitable, religious, and educational purposes. And the purpose of Mirage is to financially support, train, and mentor a new generation of Islamic scholars. And this is headed by, which I'm sure you should know, is Sheikh Imam Hamza Abdul Malik from Memphis, inshallah. And it's an excellent program. Scholarships go out from qualified people across the country, and they come in, they get interviewed, and they can receive a full free scholarship to attend, the university. It's a 2 to 4 year program, inshallah ta'ala. And again, I'll send you out so that you can distribute information in regard to that program. Very good program.
Please do. Thank you.
Oh yeah, that's excellent, man. Alhamdulillah. Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna definitely hit you offline because of that, the parent thing. I mean, I've been doing some of that on my own, but as far as establishing an organization or going into schools, that would be remarkable,
Yeah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. So we'll run for about an hour, but I think the next time we get you on, we gotta make a special 2-hour show because you got a wealth of information.
Yeah, for sure.
I know that, I just want to pick your brain. Like, we got to put a couple more logs in the fire, man. This fire, we can't let this fire go out. This Fireside Chat, man. Yeah. It's fall time. We got to get some pumpkin spice latte. We got to do this thing right, man. We got
because we headed to that hole in the ground.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, mashallah. Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, now that I know, I can advertise it a bit better. And then maybe we can, because there's a lot of parents out there that need help, that need advice. Maybe they could log on and get things going in their cities or whatever, get advice.
Right.
Okay, alhamdulillah. We usually like to, when we conclude our show, we try to conclude with some remarks and some gems of wisdom that we like to impart to the audience. And if our regular panelists don't have anything, then we would like to ask you, Sheikh Mohammed, to give us some few words of advice, like your vision, general advice, and nasiha. If anybody else doesn't have anything, we were just tuned in to you today, Sheikh. So I think I speak
for fair, Fahim. That's not fair.
Man, it's
you
absolutely.
Told me the other people on the panel I could hit and miss.
You
had me rambling.
All is fair in love and war, man. This is all love.
I love you, I love
likewise, man. Alhamdulillah. So I think I speak for them when they were just taking it in, mashallah. And so as we conclude, maybe you just give us some gems of advice, and some of your visions, based on your experience that you'd like to see, the Islamic community in Philadelphia and abroad, where we need to go.
Well, inshallah, from my experience, in basically in Philadelphia and throughout the country, we have a lot of good things going on. Okay, we have a lot to be grateful for. We have a lot to celebrate in regard to being together and recognize that we do have a future. Even though things may look a certain way, we're doing very well. We have the communities all throughout the country. We have the organization, Brother Fahim, that you and the imams have set up, the Black Imams. We have the Majlis of Shores that's trying to revamp themselves. in various areas. We have Jamaat of the Shehu, in prioritizing in education. We have our brother Atiba Jones in Atlanta, Georgia, with SAVE organization. And when you talk about youth, you got to talk about SAVE, because what they're doing is phenomenal. And we have our dear brother Tark Abdul Malik at Mecca Institute, also in Atlanta. Atlanta's on the roll, for sure. And we got a lot of good things to talk about. The point that we need to look at is Islamic movement. From an elder perspective, we lost the concept of mission and movement. Mission and movement, right? Unity, collaboration, and cooperation. Some part of that we have to entail into our individual programs. No matter what program or prioritization in the Islamic picture that we have, we should compose a part of a mission. And this is where Islamic leadership comes in at. And that's where it comes in at. We need to decide on Islamic leadership for the country, for the region. You know what I mean? So we can develop a mission, a broad enough vision that through differences, we can move in the same direction and benefit from the lack of, duplication of efforts. You got one organization doing this, they doing that, they're feeding the hungry, they're doing this over here, whatever. And there's not a unification or mission, clear mission for the non-Muslim community to see and tie into. Person becomes a Muslim, he really don't know what to do. He may go to some place, I like them, they give good cookbars over there, so I'll go over there or this or whatever. But we need to tie that together. And I'm putting that burden on the scholars, and I'm putting that burden on the leaders. Mission, movement. That's what we need to be working towards, inshallah, in the next 5 to 10 years. Allah knows best whether I'll see it. But I pray that we take some aspect of our individual efforts and take it and tie it into the collective. A collective mission and movement. We lost the concept of that, inshallah. So that's what I had to share.
Alhamdulillah, that was beautiful, mashallah. Alhamdulillah. So we didn't get any questions or anything from the listening audience, did we, Sister Fatima?
She's still listening.
Okay. Alhamdulillah. So this is a great show. Sheikh Muhammad, it was a pleasure and honor to have you on. And of course, nice. I'm pretty sure I speak for the platform here that this won't be your last visit with us. As long as you agree to come, next time we'll have the snipers out, we'll have the red carpet, we'll block the street off and give you a virtual welcome like you've never seen before. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna speak from myself. I appreciate you, my dear brother, sharing your experiences being an elder older than me. Shukran.
My pleasure meeting you, Aki.
Let me shoot my shot, Dr. Sabir. Let me dress it up a little bit. Now, Dr. Sabir is a straight shooter. Like, he don't want to hear all that. Just get to the point. The show's over. I'm just doing add-ons, mashallah.
No,
yeah, alhamdulillah. Well, we appreciate you shaking, inshallah. We look forward to working with you in the future. Definitely on the ground, so I'll be in contact, inshallah. And that we hope that, some awareness has been brought to our listening audience about the history of Philadelphia, your dynamic history and your journey as a Muslim and your commitment to the youth. And hopefully, we get more people interested in Jawala Scouts and getting back to this mission of commitment, inshallah. Ameen. Okay, subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.
Wa alaikum salam.